Mike Beretta.
Here.
Hannah Murray.
Here.
Joan Case.
Here.
Leslie Pilot.
Here.
Josh Whitmore is excused. Ray Bunce is absent for the time being. Christine Shaver, excused. We have myself as an invited guest. Tara Patton, Lisa Williams, Brittany Woodburn, and Matt Freeze.
Approval of minutes from June 24. So my only question on these was there's a note about, and we did it, we sort of conditionally approved a motion about the fence on the bottom of, oh gosh, there's no numbers. It's in item 3. But then that's not what actually happened because there was further discussion and back and forth. Do we need to do anything to change that, or do we leave it because that is what we did? It's just not what happened.
Correct. I would leave it as is because that's what was voted on, but we're changing all that at today's. So this one will kind of supersede that one.
Okay, perfect. That was my only question. Did anybody else have questions or comments on the minutes? Barring that, is there a motion to approve the minutes from June?
So
We have a first and a second in there. Thanks. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
We're skipping the financial reports because we did not get them back from Beatrice yet. So we will have to table that until next time.
Okay. Project updates. All right.
Yeah. 121 Providence is complete. CO issued. Susie Powers, the realtor everybody chose, she's basically ready to go as soon as we can pull the trigger on it. I know Joan came to the walkthrough. Everybody that wasn't able to, I shared those photos so that everybody could see the major transformation there. I think for today, what we just need to vote on is formally approving the listing price that Susie suggested, which was $195. I did not get a response from all the land banks I wanted to on showing us their deed restrictions. So I don't know if the board wants to move forward with this one without any official deed restrictions. I know we were going to pull the ones that we had done previously as well, but I've been in Portland all day today, so I did not get a chance to look through any of that stuff.
And is that something we need to have in place, totally set before we list it?
I don't know, but I think it would be something that we want the realtor to be aware of so that any potential buyers would be also aware of it. But legally, I don't know. I have to check.
Is it customary to have deed restrictions?
Most of the other land banks do.
what are they like?
Yeah.
They have all different ones. So I think that's kind of like what we can look at. So I had mentioned in the email, some of them have restrictions on not using properties for Airbnbs. Some have them not selling to landlords. Some have affordability restrictions on them. So that somebody couldn't like purchase it and then try to resell it for a higher value, or so that it stays affordable. It'll only increase for a certain percentage over a number of years based on any improvements done to the property. So they're kind of all over the place in what they implement.
So my feedback to Sarah, hearing that menu of options is what do we as a board perceive as the threat that we're hedging against, if any? I don't think we're hedging against somebody selling it for double, right? In this,
Right.
that's
Yeah,
not a concern in our particular market. So, I would say a concern, I mean, correct me here, but I would say our biggest concern would be sort of a absentee landlord situation who then doesn't care for it. Is that what you perceive as the biggest threat?
I think that's definitely one of the
Yes.
biggest ones that we have in the county.
So in which case,
That's the reason most of these properties got to where they are.
so what deed restrictions would hedge against that? Can you put it residency of the owner restriction? That the owner, even if they're a landlord, but that doesn't help necessarily either. But how do we skin this cat? How do we address this concern?
So a lot of them have actually restrictions in there that the purchaser has to be the primary resident.
Right.
If you still want it open to landlords, but not out of area landlords. I don't know. I don't know if another land bank has that specific restriction.
I mean, this, these is a one family house, right?
This is a single family home, yes.
So we could just say that the purchaser has to be the resident.
Must be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like if it was a duplex, I could see the landlord aspect. Nobody wants me to buy it and just rent it out.
Yeah, I'll tell you, in Waverly, we had too much of that. Absentee landlords in buildings downtown that were a mess, and you couldn't locate them, they wouldn't respond to anything, to clean them up, and,
I think
that
we
was
all
very
have that
difficult.
problem.
So,
Doing nickels.
so if that's one you all feel comfortable with, I can get sample
Yeah.
language and have the attorney review and send it out to everybody. Then I can just let the city know, hey, this is something that will be coming for this property. And then I'll close it.
And then even if we don't specific language, she can absolutely easily look at that concept, must be overoccupied. Correct. That's true. And I don't know if that's a huge, is that a big threat? Is that a big cause of blame? Or if it is, tell me. Right. Traveling nurse scenario, right? You gotta keep them wanting to stay there or whatever, yeah. Okay, so do you need to, how do you want us to specify that in the motion? Well, I guess we were all, I would say let's do the listing right separate. Yeah. And then for the deed restriction, I would say that maybe, a motion to approve setting the deed restriction of purchase of the. Was it over and a lot of time limit? Usually have, whereas deed restriction is forever. That's hard. I don't like that. Unless we are talking about it majorly, I do think that there is, that there's language in there about it being owner-occupied. If we pull that up, it might be an example of time for it. I'm not sure that's what those trees have been a long time. I think typically it's 5 years. Some languages do 10, but I think the majority of them do 5-year restrictions. So basically, in general real estate gains, right? I can find that. Okay, okay, so we're doing things separately, sorry, so we're sort of just covering two things at once. So the listing price, everybody's seen, wait, in agreement to that, okay, so let's get a motion for the listing price of $191,441 Providence Street. Something called the board. Awesome. So on the deed restrictions, is there a motion to approve the owner occupied deed restriction for saying 121 Providence for a time determined appropriate after looking at, and I would also add contingent upon attorney review, of course, contingent upon attorney review. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. So we'll approve second Providence. And go ahead and get everything at that 247 Main Street. So we have, excuse me, a couple of change orders to approve here. We had done that before, cleared it with LCP Group. You guys remember from last meeting, you had originally approved in the proposal their option B. It was option A, option B, and option B, which included reconstruction of the foundation wall. And then putting something temporary in place, and then for a general contractor to come in and do the foundation wall themselves. So I also can approve that and we'll approve all the asbestos abatement.
there was additional design work that had to be done with that foundation wall once they got into the plans, and then a little bit more, so they went back and forth with the architect at L2 Studio. And so there is an additional price for the additional materials that will be needed for the foundation. And so the way they were thinking that, it was a little bit confusing. But pretty much they are taking the original amount, they included, forget option 1 and 2 for now, we'll just look at option 3. That will be the total price, subtracting out the original 20,700, which comes to just so we're looking at, yeah, that's about 12,000. So that would be their change order for just the foundation one. In addition, they also have these options 1 and 2. These pricing to do the interior demolition. Gutting it and plaster. So then this is for the stuff in the house that is not hot for asbestos. This will be all the additional work that needs to be removed and gutted so the general contractor can come in and do the electrical cleaning as needed. I found this number was a little bit high, so for our comfort, we actually amended the general contractor bill that was due Monday to ask them, what would you guys charge us for that same work? Literally the same scope of work, they recommended a deal to the general contractors, put it as a bid amendment, and ask them for their pricing, and then it turns out the general contractors had a lower price than LCP. Part of that is because a lot of the training here is historic, and so it's going to either have to be hand tooled around it in that few ways, or moved very carefully in hand form, so they know exactly where to put it at. And LCP would have to hire that out to a specific carpenter rather than having a demo crews do it. So my recommendation here would be to approve the change order for LCP just for the foundation wall. Item 3, that is 3, correct. And if you look further back in the packet, there's the 247 bullets. You can see the pricing. Yeah, I put all of them in the same chart so you can all just see it. I'll scroll down to that just so you can see the difference. So this is what LCP had, and this is what both contractors had for that selective demolition. So for the member, I will just approve the foundation one. I will add as a caveat to this, I had spoken to Christina Pierce on Monday and said, please proceed with for all this and before you do anything. They would go ahead and proceed, and she did write and email back to me saying, I understand that it's not formally approved, that's a risk we have to take, because I know otherwise we only have the people out there pouring the concrete for the foundation wall. So, if you're a risk, they did do the work before we only approved this change order, and I just wanted to get from you guys about that. But so we have to build for that 12 piece, right? It's just but understand right in the time frame, right? Okay. So that's is that change order 1 and 2? Just the lights range change order. Yeah, it would just be change order 1, and then we issue 1 change order for them. Yeah, so just amend that. Yeah, is there a motion to approve change order 1 for approximately 12K rounded for the contractor LCP group? For that bid item 3. Foundation wall construction change order. Yeah. Is there a second? Yes. All those in favor? Any opposed? Another bigger part of this is the general contractor bids. So we advertised these bids. We had 2 scheduled site visits.
generally not on site. And I spoke to them with Thursday before they were due, and then they were, yes, they did try to submit a bid, but then they reached out Friday and said, actually, they don't have the time for it because they were just awarded another huge contract. They weren't sure they would need that, so they did not bid either. So that left us with Clearview, Doran Window, and Measure Twice Construction. They both attended the site visit. They spoke to the architect. They brought their bids in, and we opened on Monday. And this is the pricing. So I am making a recommendation that we do not do those two alternates, one and two. That would be for the kind of upgraded items of the hardwood flooring throughout the whole house and the hardwood siding on the exterior versus the vinyl.
So, a couple questions.
Yes.
On the alternates, does that put us at odds with OHPC, either of those?
I sent this to Amy. I'm waiting to hear back. I know this is what they wanted to know. There wasn't a question about the flooring. It was basically the vinyl siding that they had issue with. Yeah, the check was US approval for it. It was existing one, so technically they replacement in kind. And this price difference, the way there was some confusion on how the bid form was written. So what we ultimately had the contractors do is basically you take their base bid and then you're going to add this on top of it. So whatever they have for the vinyl siding is already in that base bid, and then we plus this amount to do that vinyl siding. Quick, remember. And so in this case, I would award them as my recommendation made to award the base bid to Clearview Door Window, as well as the alternate selective interior demo. And I guess if OHPC pushes back, then we would have a subsequent presentation. I don't have to have research on it. Not sure. Crunch the budget numbers.
Well, that was my second question, was how does this compare with your
So we have originally, so in our original grant application to the LBI funds, we have put in just $500,000 for this budget. We had other projects fall through, so I think we moved money around to create a buffer for it. And I currently had $750,000 put into this line, so this does fall within that. So we do have enough to cover this project.
but the foundation wall and stuff, what's the total value of SCPs? Because it's not just the 12, right? It's, right, what's that value roughly?
I think that's what we're going for. Yeah. We do have a little bit of wiggle room of their buffer, but I hadn't reallocated yet to this project.
That's the way foundations work.
For sure.
Is there any feasibility of sort of value engineering and course or any of those?
I have not asked the architect at this point if there's other than everything that we like to do. I know John, when I spoke to him, said that he's aware of the schedule of values. I think at that point that might give us a better idea of where the bigger numbers are and where we might be able to scale back on it. If you want, I can request that ahead of time. I'm just trying to figure out timeline-wise, I think it would be helpful for him to know, like, get some kind of indication of if he potentially will be one project, just so he knows not to hit on other projects. Because he did let me know, like, there's a couple of the county they've asked him to put on. And because this one, I probably will, but it's because this is another project.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're contemplating not moving forward at all, right? Because we are, it's just, I'd like to see that more contingency budget available. And I think maybe with either having him make recommendations or having Sheila have a look at if there's, we're not gonna go in there and put in like we're countertops, right? That's not what I'm proposing, but I think there are potentially some places where we can make minor trades and at least have some rooms for those things that will come up.
I think that a lot of this project, a lot of the money is going to be in the labor costs, because it is a lot more labor intensive than like, companies would do. like cereal doors that are original to the house are being restored. So I think that's where a lot of money is going to be. So hardly is the alternate, the base thing, it's just a regular house. And again, I have to look, I don't think they have. So I know it's really difficult to build. It took a lot of time. That's why I did the extensions. They didn't like to do alternates. You can use some specialty pricing or some historic elements on it. And go with what they come in the architect's estimate. He was estimating at 800,000. So 134 was the value of rest of these. Yeah, that's the change order. Yeah, so we're at 800 now. With no contingency. Yeah. Trade is in motion. Is there a motion to approve the bill for the base bid moving up of 619.3 and we have 247 Main Street and alternate 3 moving up to 535 for selected material demo work. Total contract price 662,100. Thanks, Mike. Second. There's the all that's included. And just adding the schedule values will be very helpful and to add his recommendations if there's any trades by engineers, and then if she'll still around, right? Yes. Very much so. Yeah, and she could also have a look at it and see if there's any savings available. And then so the last one we have for 247 Main Street is the additional expenses for L2. For the additional work that has to be done, so you can see on here, if you remember, we had applied for the extension for HCR for the LNI. Phase 3, as phase 1, we were for funding to make sure that we could get this paid out of that operational funding previously. So they had invoiced me ahead of time for this amount, so we had paid it. So we have the remaining amount that was left to be paid on their contract, and then additional work that they put in here based on their hourly rate. And we talked about this in the beginning with Hannah. They came back at their term contract with us. The hourly rates match. We did have in their original proposal, there was wording that said the hourly rates will be good for December 31st, 2025, but there was no actual increase in it. So this is in line with what we have with them under the term contract. Is that a different what is it business design or the same? So it's technically it's on your operational funding, but it still counts as pre-development, which is eligible under the operational funds. So not from our 750 plus minus for the separate. Okay. Is there a motion to approve change order with Delta Studio for 11,576? Well, we're doing the upgrades and there's like supercomputer, but it's not light, but the record with the record graphics is 12,138. Yes. Yeah. Because I don't yeah. Thank you.
So
This one is a second. Second. This is really actually really did get a quote from Scott this market. It's like we were willing to remove all the vegetation that has grown up around 247 Main Street. That was one of the comments the contractors gave us on site at the very end, so we're going to remove that so we can actually get in here and work. Quite tall, a lot of the trees growing up around there. I know LCP in the back, but the ones that are kind of on the side 2,070. And that's more than the actual bids. How does that work? Because he's an existing landscape contractor, which only comes in with is under $5,000 charge.
So I have to mention,
Is that? Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. Is there a second to approve Scott Kesmer's removing the brush and overgrowth in the 2070 or 2478? Like motion. Oh, I'm sorry. My fault. That's what live. No, worries, no bad. All in favor? Aye. So the next update is for 6264 Mid Avenue. We have secured one bid for contractor. There's a potential second contractor who I give my deadline this Friday to return his bid to us. If he returned it, we have 2 weeks to get it done. If not, we have a sole bid, but at this point, we have procured this multiple times. We're pretty much exploring every avenue possible. So I should have an update for you guys sometime next week. Based on what we receive on Friday, and what we don't receive. Okay. As we discussed earlier, we have one of the contract LCD, but we just have some of the on that one doing some work, so we're just kind of sitting on it right now. So no more updates there. Hickory's Park Road, we included the draft request for expression of interest for you guys to review. I know Hannah had given us some feedback that she would like to see something in there about the potential for residential since it is very convenient. I don't know if anybody else had any revision requests. Anyone needs to see change or anything. Spread them out as wide as possible, please. Get the word out there. At this point, I think giving this one probably at least 3 or 4 weeks to kind of look at and review what responders would be a better time. So we'll probably have to shoot it. And then we're going to give it till overnight after overnight. Yeah, that seems fair. Unless I don't know if you guys are in. There's something that I think we're not going to see what we get, and then it's already going to be set up right before we might not be. We have to kind of go through responses and check out what comes back. And then some notifications and whatnot. Yeah, those guys are going to form much better, but I don't know how efficiently to sort of repopulate those, you know, if it gets lost in some kind of listserv or whatever, you know. Yeah, what one's out there. And just make a spreadsheet and just follow up with people. Okay, so where it's been listed. So, we would say we talked about it or something. Okay, so I think this year is it. Oh my gosh. Maybe it's the 7th. So you want to make it the 11th, that Friday? Yeah, too. I don't think I think I heard to you on how long RFEI should be out there. What's your evaluation at the first? What's the date before the Friday before that, the 4th? You can do it before. Okay. These kind of weeks. actually Saturday to get there, so we should do it July 31st. Yeah. And then that one, 3, 4, 5 weeks. I think that's fair. So we are looking for a motion to approve the RFP for the market in Nichols Park Road and my staff to distribute the RFP for the closing deadlines and the 9/4/26. So these two for a second. So this might all in favor. I'm gonna skip ahead to talk about Great at Lake Street. Because we have to talk about Chestnut Spencer in executive session. We have a proposal from L2 for the design. So they will give us actual drawings and specifications for the roof work that needs to be done, basically the roof replacement, and the masonry work that needs to be done. As part of that is parapet and everything. Sorry. Just want to get down to it. Okay. So they gave us their initial price for those items was $40,000. There is an additional $10,000 in here for if they get into it and they find out that they need a structural engineer. I have not heard that yet. I have to touch base with Corey after this meeting. $10,000 fee would be for the structural engineering, and I had asked about anything if they would be willing to do like an hourly not to exceed 10,000 amount, since we don't really know are we going to need it, are we not going to need it, is it going to be just a tiny bit of structural engineering. And then they also offered an additional $5,000 for doing the remodeling of the entire mowing floors if we wanted, because I know that they're out there to do the remodeling of the roof and parapet area. They said for the additional $1,000, we could just do the whole mowing floors if we wanted that for future design, and then $3,000 for bidding support. And we went kind of this route because we're getting the people out there trying to secure quotes. We weren't really doing that with apples. We reached out to Labella, and what they came up with for us was just a condition report for about $30,000 with the actual construction drawings or specifications. This is the actual documents that we can get out and say, how the contractors, this is exactly what we want you to do, and that way we can get pricing back to compare apples to apples. Was the existing conditions for the entire building, you just put it yeah, just to run the masonry. I am interested in hearing back about that structural because it seems like there's some room for granularity there in pricing. And what I think I had asked, what's our existing data now? Because several, at least one engineer has done drawings out there. So what is the source of their existing? The only thing they have are the plans that Brett had brought up from engineers for Biden. That was I don't know what you know previously. Somehow they came up with dimensions and all those existing information. And just so you know, the roof is not part of anything that we made there because that's not part of John Leishko's scope of work. He was not doing anything. That's the short story. And the bidding support specifically for the roof and masonry. Is that something that you feel like you is okay. That is helpful feedback. So are we able to, if so, inclined, approve just the a larger part of the project, so how do we facilitate that? Yeah, I'm just thinking of going then, because I think their concern would probably be if we were just phase one, and then they start work, and get into it and find out like, do we need the structural engineering? I think they would just want some security that we understand that they would be trying to how to word it.
Let's do it contingent.
Yeah.
Phase 1 and 2. Phase 2 is
Contingent upon the approval and hourly,
not to exceed.
not to exceed amount. But we don't agree to that, and then we come back to you guys and say, we do not agree to this. It's all or nothing, right?
Okay. Right, so motion is approved change order phase 1 of change order 1 and
Phase 1 and 2 of change order 1, contingent on
an hourly not to exceed rate for the structural work in phase 2. If needed. So that's for 790. Yeah,
42 from phase 1, and then up to not to exceed 10,000 for the structural for phase 2.
Is there a motion for that? Was there a motion? Motion waived. I love it. Second, all those in favor? Aye.
Okay, so then 2 weeks for 4850. So we need to approve the proposal for asbestos testing with the work for the roof. It's just under his existing term contract. So we don't need a formal motion for that, but I just want to keep that for it. And give us the pricing for it. We want to work with that because obviously we're just the third item is for the ESD Regional Council Capital Fund Program. So there's all this, we've been talking about and working on the grant application to this program to get additional funding to put towards this project. And then if anyone wants to talk about it a little bit. Yes.
If not, I printed it, I just didn't.
There's a lot in this agenda.
This is just a different grant source to help secure some funding for the build out of the commercial space, ESD, Regional Council Capital Funds Program. We talked to the state about it. I think it would be a good project. We had done a request for expression of interest for childcare facilities and got a response. It fits with the program. We can apply up to 40% of the total eligible project costs, which in this case, we're just looking at the cost of the facade, the work, and the childcare build out. We got that proposal from Sheila. It's a script list of it. That totals $3 million, so 40% of that we can apply up to is the 1.2 million, a little above that. The million they could apply for. And then we can use some of the other existing grant sources as match for the remaining 60%.
60% of that project cost. There is a 10% cash equity requirement that has to be cash equity. It can't be no longer a grant source. That's a little over 300,000. Just wanted to make you guys aware of that. If we go after it, it doesn't have to be a first in situation. So probably 2 years down the road by the time this is all happening, it would have to come in the form of cash equity, which you know, they have so much available right now in ARPA and general funds. It'd be tight. So we have to kind of, I mean, you'll have the sale of Providence, you may at that time have had the sale of 247 Main Street, so there'll be other, hopefully, cash flow at that point, but just trying to secure some additional funding sources for 4850. There's not a lot of, there's a lot more funding sources to support the residential build out. This is kind of one of the few sources to help with the commercial build out. So, if they say yes, job that did comes in, can't come cash equity, then you can return it. Yeah, obviously that's but yeah, so gosh, it's a pretty nice pot of money to go into that's what we're trying to do. So I think it's worth trying that. We really personally, especially since we have a couple of revenue producing assets out there. And we'll just have to keep trying to drum up. 306, that's let's check our contributions. So I think we'll support applying for it. So, is there a motion to approve that ESD raising council capital fund program? I make the motion. Awesome. There's second. Those in favor? I like those. Okay. And thank you guys for continuing working for these different lots of money to facilitate those things. Do we want to briefly just mention, because I know you're up later, we have one Chestnut and Spencer. Discussion. So we're not going to vote on that one right to the right. Is there one? I don't know if I heard his contact. Okay. So he had emailed and said he's going to wait for something. Oh, okay. I thought he was like imminent. Okay, so we're gonna be done. Okay. Do we want to try to do like a, I don't know, is that the only one we can do? The organization would be. So we remember the New York runs, and then went around in my conversations with the county adventures of ours. For those programs, they could request $200,000 upfront, so they have the account to be contractual either as part of the school bill. Because that would be money upfront, you're locked in and have a separate bank account to put those funds in. So we just need authorization from the board to set up that bank account. But as part of that, we're going to need to know if we want to have authorized as banking access to that account. What do we need different than kind of those to look existing? I would not, well, that's quite a bigger SOP discussion. I would say when it comes to that, authorized signatories and the people who have access to the account will likely be the same as the other accounts. Okay. So we can, it certainly makes sense to have that. It's only part of it. Just yeah, it's easier. No room for mistakes if it's the only money that they all right, so sorry, I'm afraid that's here. So can we just run it Yeah, and I think just authorization to open a new bank account as well. And authorization to open a new bank account for. Yeah. Is that a motion? So second. So, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Tomorrow, for discussions, we do want to try to set up like a special meeting 2 weeks. 2 weeks actually isn't a good option. But I think for the situation at 115 Chestnut and Spencer, we would think it's sooner than that because of the tight timeline that we're on.